Tonight's program is brought to you by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, empowering Hawaiians, strengthening Hawaii. Closed captioning for tonight's program provided by Chaminade University, proud to offer Native Hawaiian scholarships.
In the past 40 years, Pokalea has sailed more than 150,000 miles across the world's largest ocean, a distance greater than circling the Earth more than 7 times. It has bridged hundreds of islands, and it's been touched by thousands of people. Pokalea awakens stories that remind us of a history, a heritage of an ocean people, our kupuna, who arguably are among the greatest explorers the world has ever known. When we share these stories, these memories from one generation to the next, we create legacy. In 1975, not only did she sail triumphantly to Tahiti and back, she continued to reconnect Hawaii to its ancestral homeland, Nukuhiva, Rarotonga, Rapa Nui, Aotearoa. Indeed, a sea of islands, our oceanic ohana. Our youth are now charting the course for our future and navigating around the world as caretakers and guardians of island Earth and its precious ocean resources.
You know, the Worldwide Voyage really, in the thought and the creation of it, it was about connecting ourselves, our home, to the rest of the world, in that thought that the canoe would be able to continue to be that needle, to continue to sail across the ocean. Our teacher, Mao, he always would tell us that the ocean connected us. The ocean never separated us. That it was someone else who drew a line and said that this is this area, you guys are that area. But someone else was trying to understand it, but we understood that we're all one people. And hopefully that will spill over into the communities that the canoes go into now, that they'll feel a sense of ownership within their place, within their home, within the pride of their place that they have, and that their willingness to share that with us. Hopefully we'll be able to bring that home to Hawaii, that when we come home, we'll be able to bring back a piece of all the places that the canoe would touch and have been touched by.
Yeah, so we travel to these places throughout the Pacific and the world. And they're very unique places. They have the unique beauty, and they have a lot to offer as far as native wisdoms, local wisdom, and the way to do things, and the way they care for their land. The beauty is to be able to take what we learn from these other places and adapt it, and we try and find that way to embrace others to move forward. I mean, you know, the Hawaiians, they always had that capacity.
My hopes for the voyage is that it will continue to inspire, that we all will gain in the sense of understanding our connection as that wa'a, that honua, that moku. We could all hopefully understand the part that we play in being connected to one another.
Part of it is about the future. And the children are the ones who are going to create that future, be part of that future, for them to see it in such a real way, to see that Hawaii has something to contribute to this effort And we have a message, we have a way of life that can be shared with others around the world. That is what makes it special for kids. So the voyage is an opportunity for them to gain the knowledge, but also have that experience and be able to see their role in the future and how they can take action to help create the future that they want. Kids are able to see parts of the world that they may never visit physically, but they can see it through the technology. They can talk to other students in American Samoa, in New Zealand, in other parts of the world. They're going to actually converse with kids their own age, with other teachers to teachers, about what their lives are like. And it's going to expand their horizons and their understanding of what it means to live in a really, truly global economy.
Personally, for me, I hope that our students will look inward towards their own teachers, their schools, and bring it home for themselves, in that sense that it's not just about the canoe that's going, but it's even about us home here. And what are we going to do home here? What can we do for our honua? What can we do for our community, for our classroom? Is there something that we can do right here? And I hope the voyage inspires that we all feel a sense that there is something that we can do for our place. If the canoe can do that for all of us in some way, shape, or form, I think the canoe will be successful, and this voyage will be a successful one.
There's an undeniable power that Hokulea has in changing the lives of those she touches. For Hawaiians, these transformations are a reawakening of a culture and identity that is in each and every one of us. Journey with us now as we discover stories of those who are influenced by her travels, gaining a strong sense of identity and strengthening their view of the future.
The first time they arrived, beginning of the 1985-87 voyage of rediscovery, our chief, Sir James Henare, he seeing that you arrived here the same as how our ancestors did on the canoe, gave them the honor of being the sixth tribe of Taitokera.
He talked about the 5 tribes of Taitokera. He talked about the 5 canoes that define the tribes. And then he raised the question. He goes, but you've come by voyaging canoe. So that must make you the 6th tribe of Taitokera. Which was like, whoa. All of a sudden, we're not guests anymore. We're ohana.
When Hokulea first arrived, there were Hawaiians there to help greet it and help with everything. It is kind of natural for Hawaiians to be there to greet it for its return, especially when we're returning as the 6th tribe.
The day when the Hokulea and the Va'a met us at Waitangi just made me really proud to be a Hawaiian, and just seeing all the places that they're touching and they're reconnecting to their roots and they're reconnecting to our brothers and sisters of Polynesia just helps me to see throughout the lens of our ancestors that there is still values that we as Kanaka Maoli and students can be really proud of.
It's like, oh, I can't believe I'm actually here. I'm doing this, I'm in it. Like, I'm never gonna get this again. Like, just so thankful that I was there.
In the fall of 2014, Kamehameha students and staff traveled to Aotearoa, New Zealand, to participate in the commemoration of Hokulea's return to Waitangi.
Us 14 Haumana that were so humbly chosen and a blessing from Okua, we all are different and we're shaped differently. We have a different mind settings, we have different strong points, and we all do different things. But as Uncle Nainoa said, we all carry the same values, and when we carry the same values, we move as one Va'a.
My role as a student being a part of this is perpetuating and just showing aloha and also absorbing everything that they have for us to know.
And we just try to show our aloha by helping the tupuna, helping the little children, trying to teach them and educate them about our culture and who we are as people. And we get the same in return.
All of them performing It's like, reminds me of us because they're our age and they're performing, they do them, we do us.
The harmonies they sing, I always think to myself, I'm like, hey, we do that. And it just makes me think, you know? We all came from the same place. And they haven't forgotten that.
It's an eye-opener to see how the cultures are similar, but they have their own uniqueness about it. It's wonderful that the two schools can be together and share culture, share a meal together, and create a relationship that I hope can go on into the future. Having the school from Hawaii here before we come up there is a double bonus.
On this trip, the Kamehameha School's delegation was treated to the warm hospitality of a number of schools throughout Aotearoa. Students and teachers from one of those schools, the Bay of Islands College, had the unique opportunity of visiting Hawaii a few weeks later.
This is unbelievable. Some of them are probably first time ever out of New Zealand, and so this has really broadened their horizons.
Yeah, this is my first time overseas. Oh, what a beautiful place to come to, Hawaii. The exchange of cultures was just awesome. I learned a few phrases, teaching them a few phrases, you know, and really makes me happy to see that we're kind of similar in our ways, yeah. And our whānau, ohana, yeah.
I'm hoping that bringing them to Hawaii makes them realise that there's more opportunities, that there's opportunities for them anywhere in the world, and the fact that they know Māori, they have an asset. There are people that will value the culture they can bring from New Zealand and show our culture is something that we should be proud of, because the Hawaiian people are very receptive to it. And so we need to understand just what a gift or what a valuable asset we have.
Well, you kind of get the bug, right? Especially coming to this beautiful place. Makes me fit to travel more and experience other cultures, see what it's like all over the world.
I'm realizing that there's a whole world out there and a lot of other rich cultures, and they have their own dances and their own music and their own styles and their own foods, everything. And just learning all of these is expanding your knowing of the world itself.
I mentioned this quote by Uncle Hector Busby. He said, if all we do is talk and just talk, then nothing gets done. What we have to do is we have to get in with our hands, and we have to go and build our own foundation, not just talking, but actually doing. Just like how our Princess Bernice Pauahi, she left a legacy for us, and as each Haumana, with our experience, we can go spread our knowledge, because we all can leave a legacy. And if we leave a legacy, it can go on forever and forever. And that's kind of the best thing that we can do for our people, is leave a legacy that will affect all, and not a select, but all.
For over 40 years, Hokule'a's voyages throughout the Pacific and around the world have enabled its Haumana to broaden their horizons, building strong ties with our Pacifico Hana and being blessed with an unforgettable experience. These students return home with newly inspired levels of confidence, growth, and self-identity.
1992 was a pivotal year for me. I was a junior at Kamehameha, and I had the opportunity to represent Hawaii. It was really like a land canoe for me. We had to learn how to take care of one another. We had to learn how to act as one unit, as one halau. It was a major milestone in my life, because not only did we get to share our own mo'olelo, our language, our dances, our traditions, but we got to interact with other practitioners. We got to interact with other cultural experts representing Melanesia and Micronesia and Polynesia. My experience in Rarotonga also helped to develop a sense of confidence and sense of esteem mostly because it was founded and grounded upon 2,000 years worth of knowledge and wisdom and inspiration. We were talking about the transfer over of Koho'olawe. We were talking about reclaiming our language and getting involved in the Punaleo movement. We were talking about what it meant to commemorate the illegal overthrow of 1893. Prior to that, I wanted to study law, which would have been fine. It would have been a great experience, I believe. But because of that trip, I knew that I needed to learn more about my own rich language and culture. And I dedicated myself from that point forward to reclaiming my identity.
As track president, I was invited, along with 3 other student leaders, to accompany a group of alumni that were going down to Raiatea to participate in a major ceremony that was reuniting the voyaging traditions of Polynesia through the canoes that had been rebuilt since the 70s following the Hokule'a's sailing. For all intents and purposes, this was my first trip outside of Hawaii. I remember being told that a lot of these places that had similar names showed, these are our same places. Even that marae Tapu Tapu Atea on the North Shore is Kapu Kapu Akea, an older heiau that is no longer visibly present, but it was said that those were directly connected. When I got there, it was just mind-blowing. It stirred this deeper sense of myself. It was less about just the land, but the people there, seeing ourselves in their faces and going swimming in the ocean and seeing the same fish, being in landscapes that felt very familiar. And then, of course, the ceremony at Tapu Tapu Atea, which was the life-transforming moment that I experienced. The late Tongan anthropologist, philosopher Epele Hau'ofa re-described the region as our Sea of Islands, as a vast region that's interconnected by the seas. For me, being a part of these journeys, these travels into the Pacific, showed me my past, the long history of voyaging that brought our people to these islands, and using that, I suppose, that metaphor of the star compass, it gave me a new way of finding my bearings in the world, a new set of signs to be looking at in order to know if I'm going in the right direction or not, new marks on the land and in the ocean to understand where we need to head as a people. And so for our students to have those experiences, getting that deeper sense of where they're from, where they're going, connecting there really gave me a new sense of myself as a Hawaiian and as part of this broader Polynesia and Pacific family.
In fostering the exchange of knowledge and culture, the Kamehameha schools host students from around the world. In 1986, Craig Coxhead from St. Stephen's School in Aotearoa became an exchange student at Kamehameha.
I work in the Waitangi Tribunal and I also work in the Māori Land Court. The Waitangi Tribunal was set up in 1975. So what the tribunal's role has been is to look at claims where Māori groups put their claim before the tribunal and say, we have been prejudicially affected by actions of the Crown, and we would like the tribunal to inquire into these claims and to recommend redress. St. Stephen's gave me the opportunity, not just myself, but others, to go to Kamehameha. The exchange, while it was about education, it was certainly founded in an exchange of culture. And that cultural basis has certainly stayed with me. Those memories, those experiences have assisted me in my work that I've done and certainly had an impact in the life that I lead. Going to Kamehameha, in particular Mr. Bass, he would encourage students to question what he was saying. He encouraged debate. And I remember at one time when we went to class and my fellow friends from St. Stephen's could not believe how he allowed people to question what he had said. He encouraged you to think. He encouraged you to not just accept things as they were put before you, but to challenge them, to question them, and then come to your own views. He opened my mind and opened my views in terms of the law, and I think that he was quite influential in me studying law and being involved in the law like I am today.
concepts of ancestral knowledge, the concepts of sustainability, engineering, success in a global economy, these are our local indigenous concepts that have always been part of our Hawaiian culture. This is not something new we see, this is something that's always been there. It's important for our learners to understand that that's something that's within them, it's part of our foundation, and as we explore globally, this is not something you lose, this is something you build on.
So this morning we had the privilege of welcoming the Kamehameha children and teachers to our school because obviously we are in New Zealand, so we held a pōwhiri. We thought that was appropriate. It's a really wonderful opportunity to share our taha Māori with visitors and guests. I think it's very important that students today know and understand not only te reo Māori but tikanga Māori, because that's who they are. And they are the tangata whenua of our land, so they are very, very important people amongst us, and it's important that we acknowledge their role in our society.
Our school is 74% Māori, so predominantly our students are Māori. Most of our children are Tainui from the local area, but we do have a mixture of iwi as well in our student population. But there are still slightly different emphases within the Rumaki and the Reoro. You'll see certainly a more holistic approach and spiritualism being part of that.
A lot of our students are urban, so they come from cities. So a lot of them don't get back to their rural marae, where their people are from. They know about them, they know their mountain, they know their river, their tribe. Just to connect them with their people, their stories is a challenge sometimes because being brought up in the city, they don't get that experience. But just coming into this environment where being a Māori is to be excellent is something we try and promote.
One of our missions is to make sure that these students continue to grow in an environment that nurtures who they are, what they are, and that to be Māori and successful is a normal thing. For us, it's all about aloha, and our people, our whānau of Kamehameha, have really been awesome examples to us in how to love, how to look after people, and so it's important for us that we reciprocate all the time.
More and more, experts are discovering that Indigenous knowledge is key to a society's ability to thrive. Today, our educational and community leaders are realizing the value of Native place-based knowledge and are taking a more holistic approach to education.
Last December, we had an opportunity to meet at Thompson's home, and it included the president of the university, included the superintendent of the Department of Education, and included several heads of private schools. And we calculated that we represented collectively about 80 to 85% of all the kids who are being educated. All the research is telling us in public and private schools that the 21st century skills for our students include critical thinking, to think creatively, to work collaboratively, to have compassion, to communicate with clarity, and to have a global perspective. And when you think about it, those are all of the skills and attitudes that you want to see in a navigator.
You know, one of our theories in the department is that we can't do it alone. There are children, institutions, opportunities, resources in other parts of our community, in our education partners, that will help all of Hawaii's children grow. I think it really is the first time that private schools and public schools and higher education have all come together and said, it's not just about our institution, it's about our children, it's about our students, and it's about the future of the state.
What's really important for us is understanding that we can be both local and global. For so long, we believe that it's one or the other. And for us, it's important that we see local, indigenous knowledge as a competitive advantage in our world. On a global basis,
and not as something, as a trade-off between that and something else.
As we participate in the world, it's our job to change it. We don't just come along for the ride. And I love that the voyage is such an active opportunity for our students in particular to learn to face challenges, to shape their destiny, and to experience something that I know will live with them for decades to come. For us, universities traditionally have been about teaching, research, and service. And for the University of Hawaii, over the past decade, we've embraced two additional aspects of our mission. One is our commitment to be a model Indigenous serving university, and second, commitment to sustainability. So when you think about teaching, research, service, model Indigenous serving university, sustainability, Malama Honua is all of that rolled into one.
As we look into the future, if we could have a vision of what leadership would look like in our state, we see a day where our leaders are able to speak both English and Olelo Hawaii, and to be able to bring cultural identity to all facets of our state. And we don't see this in the long, distant future. This is something we believe can happen in a short period of time if we're committed to it, committed to language, we're committed to cultural identity, and we're committed to making sure our educational programs are designed in that way.
Communication has always been an important aspect of culture and the means by which it is preserved, handed down, and adopted. Modern developments of mass media have created new and exciting ways for Indigenous knowledge to be shared with the world.
It seems like in this day and age, everyone is kind of uplifting each other and there's more collaboration. So it allows us to be a part of that and kind of lead the way into this very new realm of publishing. It just felt authentic, and I think that that's something that we've tried to maintain throughout Mana's history, is to represent the culture in an authentic way, to be able to provide a resource and a source of inspiration for people to understand the things that are happening in the community, the history, the mo'olelo, just to be able to have a place that feels truly Hawaiian, because I personally feel like the only place where you can source the true information is here. There have been so many people from generations past who've had to struggle to express their identity and to be proud of who they are and to share the culture that they love. And we want to do them justice by presenting everything that we know and have in common with them in a beautiful way, utilizing this new media.
I have inspirations that are very broad, but my main thread is definitely Hawaiian culture. Very proud to be Hawaiian, and some of the things that being Hawaiian has afforded me, my lifestyle, my family, that I wouldn't change it for anything. I'm super proud to be Hawaiian.
There is a common thread with everyone who loves the culture, whether you live in Japan or Mexico and you have a desire to continue learning any aspect of the culture. You can do that because it's available on your phone, on your tablet, and your computer. You can take it with you anywhere. So we kind of just want to fill in that gap and help to further uplift the culture in a really celebratory way.
Maori Television is Aotearoa's Indigenous broadcaster. They are at the forefront of providing a wide range of local and international programming to the Maori community.
In kind of strict terms, we're just a television station, that broadcasts Maori cultural programming. But our bigger mission in life is really about supporting a flourishing Maori identity. Maori, as the colonized peoples of this land, have suffered, to be frank, and our culture, our language were suppressed. In the last 30 or 40 years, we've been rebuilding our language and our culture. We've been building our economic development, and Māori television is just part of that. So we're very much part of that renaissance what we do supports the very nature of being an Indigenous New Zealander. We know that Māori television and what we're doing, our mission of rejuvenating language and culture, is a great thing for Māori, it's a great thing for New Zealanders, and indeed through MāoriTelevision.com it's a great thing for the world to see that Aotearoa New Zealand has a vibrant language and culture that's Indigenous to Aotearoa.
Well, the mission of Māori Television was to be a world-class Indigenous broadcaster and to be able to tell our stories with our perspective to other Māori and New Zealanders and other Indigenous peoples of the world. And it was really going back to their mantra, which was mā rātou, mā mātou, mā koutou, mā tātou, which basically means this channel is for them, it's for us, it's for you, and it's for everyone.
The things I love about my job being a cameraman is I get to go out to all the events and I get to see my whānau and I get to make new friends, meet new people. You see the similarities between our cultures and you know, there's so many things like family, looking after the environment. Those are all things that are consistent with most Indigenous cultures. So to go out and hear the stories of other Indigenous peoples, it's really important to me. When we first started, there weren't many people that thought we were going to last very long. Back in the day, you used to hear not many people saying any Māori words, but now you go onto our national carrier, airline carrier, Air New Zealand, and you've got people saying kia ora, and you've got people saying haere mai, and you've got a lot more Māori language being used. It sets us apart, I guess, from other countries. You know, it's our language. It's the language that was here before anyone else. So holding on to that, holding on to some of our customs, our tikanga, they're not important in other cultures. But to us, a lot of those things are important. And people look up and they can see Māori faces on television. They've got role models that they can look to. So that's one of the other benefits of having us here. I think just us being around has really increased people's awareness of the Māori language. And so today, for instance, having my son's school come in, I was speaking Māori to him and he said, "Dad, why are you talking Māori to me?" I said, "Son, because where do I work? I work at Māori Television. What do I do there? I'm trying to revitalise our language, and if I can't talk to my son about it, who can I talk to?" And he was like, "Oh, true, Dad, true." So, you know, getting through to him, getting through to his friends, well, they're the next generation that are going to be talking to Te Māori, so if I can encourage them one at a time, then that's what I'm going to try and do.
Master Navigator Mao Piailug of Micronesia navigated Hokule'a on her first voyage to Tahiti in 1976. He shared his ancestral knowledge of celestial navigation with Hawaiians and other Polynesians, so we could all realize the close ties we have as seafaring people.
Going back to these places at Tahiti and the Cook Islands of Samoa, and Tonga and Aotearoa, it's helped the next generation to make their own stories, to make their stories come alive. Not just the stories that they had heard from the older generation, but it was now that they were able to become a part of that story.
I ko'u la heu ole, ia'u e kameli'i ana e haumana ana ma ke kula ha'aha o Kamiluiki. Ho'omana kula wau I ka hele ana I ka halewai hona puke no ka nana I ka papakau maka ma ke kamapiula. Ma le no e ike mua ai ia hokule'a ma ka holo ana ma ka huaka'i no nā mamo ma ka maka I ki kana iwa kumalua. A oia ka ike mua ia, ka lohe mua ia no ia mea he hokule'a he wa'akaulua holo ana mai Hawaii I ka hiki. Oia ka mea e ho'a I ki ahi I loko o no ka imi ana I ke ia mea he wa'a, he kaulua. Ma mua, a ole loa kai kanaka me ka ike pehe ho'okele ai ka wa'a. Ua imi aku I kanaka, a ua loa o Mau Piailu. A nana no e a'o aku I a nainoa I ki ano ko okele wa'a. Nā nainoa e a'o aku I ana kala Bruce ki ano ko okele wa'a me kalepa, me onohi, a ki kahi mau kanaka e a'e. E na'e, ke makua ela lako, a he mea pono ka ke a'o ana I nā hanau na hou. I hiki ke ho'o mau I kia ano hana ko'i o ko ho'okele wa'a.
One thing I would always remember what Papa Mao told us was, even though we call him a master navigator, to him, he's never going to be a master until what he taught carries on. But until then, you're always going to be a student, you're always going to be learning, and you always should be teaching whatever you learn.
But that's what the voyage is about. The voyage, again, is about learning. It's a learning journey to the max. I mean, that's what exploration's about. Gathering knowledge and sharing knowledge.
Lionel Thompson, I guess could tell that I wanted to learn as much as I could, and he was such a great teacher and patient enough and willing to share with me his knowledge. And so I just tapped into 1,000 questions that I had about how our ancestors navigated.
It was just amazing to see how teaching and knowledge makes you live on, not knowing who you teach today. You're going to be teaching your grandkids in the future or your kids in the future.
E pomaka I ka'u hele mau ana ma hokule a lau o hiki ana lia. Ua lilo wau I wahi haumana ho'okele na Anakala Bruce. Blankenfeld, Oyanoka, ke kahuna ho'okele wa'a, a me ka oihana kilo hoku a ha'aheo no wau I ka lilo ana I haumana nana. A kia manawa e hola wau me Anakala Bruce, mai a Aotearoa ai Aukele Kulia. Oia ke kapena, a wahi ana o wau ka ho'okele. No lai e lilo mau ana wau I wahi haumana na Anakala Bruce, a me kaua mea he kilo hoku ho'okele wa'a.
And it's been likewise for everyone in those places that the canoes have gone to already. Because now the generation that grew up seeing Hokulea come to their shores are now standing on the deck of their canoes, and that their people in their homes get to see them, and they're able to make that connection with their own people and see their families from Tahiti or from Aotearoa stepping forward into the leadership.
Just by going back and learning the art, we're actually going back and learning about who we were and then relating it to who we are now. Because people, for many, many years, doubted the abilities of our ancestors. And by us doing what we do now, we become stronger by knowing who we were. Because they already had it sorted out. We're just merely the teller of their story. And then maybe later, our children will tell our story and the story of those before us.
So it was really important that we connect to everyone so that we all remember the stories that have come from the past that begin to live again through the voyages that the canoes are doing. It's going to be those men and women that have stepped forward that are going to continue to write the next chapter of the stories for their people, for their homes, for their communities, for their honua, for their wa'a.
Being connected by Facebook, by cell phones, by these, isn't connectivity. Connectivity is kanohi ki te kanohi, face to face. And over time and distance, we've kind of become separated. So for us, it's looking at the Pacific as our home and everyone in it as being whānau. So it's not just about people, it's about how you shift your historical data from one point to the next without losing anything. Most of this data is coming out of technology. People are going on to Google. Google wasn't my tupuna. You kind of need to be careful. It stores information, but that's not knowledge. It's about how do you maintain your historical knowledge. How do you connect the people 200 years from now to that knowledge 1,000 years ago? What's your role in it? What's your role in that process? As an Indigenous person, what's your role?
It was so beautiful to see so much culture in Aotearoa. Culture is everything that makes up a people. It's the songs, it's the dances, it's the uncles and aunties making food, it's families, it's children and parents, it's the educational system, it's the values, and so I feel like performance is right next to all of those particular things. Performance starts at a certain point, here comes the chanters or here comes the dancers, and then it ends. But for me, culture is when all of those things, everything that I had just mentioned about a community and how they all work together to bring richness to the lives of a whole people, of a lahui.
Folks have an awesome opportunity to think what you want to do with all of this and to not be afraid to do big things. It's these moments that define who we are as Hawaii. There are a lot of people back home doing the same things that you saw people here doing. There are Kanaka at home just as proud to be Hawaiian as these Maori are proud to be Maori. And you could be one of them. But you gotta make decisions that may not seem cool. Yeah, or may not be what everyone else in your class wants to do. And that's okay. Because you'll realize that there are more people out there who want to do those same things. And now you have each other. Maintain the pilina that you built on this trip and carry that with you through your life, and you will find that you are the Hawaiian that you see in those Maori. And you will become that person.